If you're eating right now, there are 3 facts about bird poop that you need to know. First, it's free. Second, dogs can eat bird poop. And third, the Japanese once used it for beauty treatments. The other day, I happened to read an article about this, and it was pretty wild. So now we have a video about all the most horrifying beauty methods I could find. As always, the information is just stuff I've gathered from the internet and various sources, so I can't verify it myself. So if there is anything wrong or in need of correction, you can comment down below. Let's start with what I mentioned earlier, using animal waste for beauty. According to what I've read back in the 17th century, Asian geishas would take a powder made from dried and ground nightingale droppings and use it as a kind of facial cleanser mask and skin whitening powder. This type of bird poop originated in Korea. It was a substance they used to bleach and treat stains on fabric. That's because bird droppings contain enzymes that act as a natural bleaching agent. The artisans really needed this. And when they brought the fabric to Japan for kimonos to be sewn, they revealed the use of this bird poop. Japan has always been poor in natural resources, so the people there are very good at making use of what's available. And so instead of using it to bleach clothes, they just put it on their faces. How creative. The method was to dry the bird poop, then grind it into a fine powder and mix it with the water to create a paste for skincare. But modern scientists have actually acknowledged that this works. Specifically, nightingale droppings contain a substance that helps smooth the skin and prevent aging. Because geishas had to wear heavy makeup frequently, their skin was often dry and easily irritated. So this bird poop helped them easily remove makeup as well as moisturize and improve their skin's texture. Actually, where I'm from, moms used to joke about using baby poop as a face mask for smoother skin. So it turns out it was something like that, huh? And these bird poop products became so famous that later on, they were developed into a type of cosmetic used by big names like Tom Cruise and Victoria Beckham. That Victoria Beckham lady even praised the bird poop cosmetic as miraculous, saying it helped her get rid of her persistent acne. But it doesn't just stop at bird droppings. We have something even more terrifying: crocodile dung. The ancient Greeks and Romans believed that crocodile dung had therapeutic, relaxing, and beautifying properties for the skin. They would bathe and get massages in a mixture of warm mud and crocodile dung. But this method quickly disappeared because many people got infections and skin diseases after bathing in crocodile dung. Another use for crocodile dung was as a contraceptive method. Ancient Egyptian women would use crocodile dung, mix it with honey, and then apply it inside the vagina, believing it would block sperm. Holy shit. I haven't been able to find any scientific paper proving this is true, but I think it was probably effective. Because no one wants their little guy to smell bad, and besides, it could probably cause a vaginal infection. Skin whitening with lead. In the 16th century, Queen Elizabeth I of England was famous for her pale complexion, and she created a beauty trend that was both unique and toxic in the truest sense of the word, which was considered the standard of beauty at the time. Back then, pale skin was considered a sign of a comfortable life and the upper class. That's because they thought only rich women could have such porcelain white skin. Poor women, the lower working class, had to work all day, so their skin was dark and swarthy. And to get the white skin they desired, they used a type of whitening powder, lead carbonate, the kind people often use for painting. Along with that, they applied vinegar, sulfur, alum, and tin oxide to their faces. Many people even added mercury to the mixture, because mercury has the ability to inhibit melanin, making the skin look whiter. And of course, these are all substances that are very toxic to the human body. When used for a long time, the facial skin would be eroded, and the user would suffer from lead and mercury poisoning, making their skin become even more deathly pale and wan. And then they would die from severe poisoning. A lot of young women lost their lives from using this toxic method. A prime example is the Icelandic noblewoman who died at the age of 27 with her body heavily contaminated with lead. But the woman who started this trend, Queen Elizabeth I, lived for quite a long time, to the age of 69. No joke. It could be that she used a better quality product or a safer dose. It's possible the rest were just imitating her without understanding, so they likely overdosed, getting tuberculosis to look more beautiful. In the 18th and 19th centuries, the Victorian era, also known by a more poetic name, the Romantic period in Europe. At that time, beauty was valued more highly than moral qualities. So women of that era had to find every possible way to make themselves more beautiful. The standard back then was that women had to have a slender body, porcelain white skin, and plump red lips. Coincidentally, at that time, the tuberculosis epidemic was raging across Europe. And also coincidentally, the physical characteristics of patients with pulmonary tuberculosis perfectly matched the beauty standards of the time. As a result, many women exposed themselves to people with tuberculosis in order to get infected. And tuberculosis would slowly drain their bodies, and then they would waste away and die. Their bodies would then be slender, weak, pale, and they'd lose weight due to anemia. Their lips would be red from coughing up blood, and their eyes would sparkle because they were always filled with tears. Back then, tuberculosis became a fashionable disease gradually glorified in poetry, plays, and paintings. For example, John Keats, an English poet, praised tuberculosis in his poetry, considering it the disease of beauty. And then he contracted tuberculosis and kicked the bucket at the age of 25. Another example is the opera La Traviata, or The Fallen Woman, which was inspired by a novel by Alexandre Dumas. It tells the story of his brief love affair with a courtesan who had tuberculosis. It wasn't until 1882 that Dr. Robert Koch discovered the tuberculosis bacterium and revealed that it was a dangerous infectious disease. Immediately, tuberculosis became a shunned illness. And anyone who had tuberculosis at that time was considered to have a one-way ticket to the grave, bathing in the blood of virgins to hold on to youth. The Hungarian Countess Elizabeth Bathory, she was nicknamed the Blood Countess for her horrific crimes. This woman was born into a noble Hungarian family. She was very beautiful and intelligent, but also extremely cruel. According to records, she suffered from headaches since she was a child. The family's private doctor treated her by killing a pigeon and placing it whole on her forehead, and this was the first time she was exposed to a blood-related treatment method. Around the age of 40, she began to age. Her skin wrinkled and her hair turned gray. So she frantically searched for methods to preserve her youth, and she discovered the method of beautifying with human blood by chance. That time, she beat a servant for daring to mess up her hair, and she hit the girl so hard that blood splattered onto her hand. When she wiped it away, she realized that the patch of skin the blood had landed on had become smoother. So she began to experiment, and that servant girl was the first unlucky test subject. The girl was captured, beaten, then hung up to have her throat cut, so the Countess could bathe in her blood. And after that, she became addicted to this horrifying method. But in order to get the blood of virgins, she had to open a school for nobles in her castle. It was a trick to lure the virgin daughters of peasant families who wanted to marry their children into high society to attend. In reality, she was raising them to harvest their blood over time. Every day, a few girls would be dragged away to become her bathwater. There were also girls who found out, but before they could speak up or run away, they became the next victims. Gradually over time, this Elizabeth was no longer satisfied with the blood of commoners, because she believed the blood of noble virgins would be more effective, so she had people abduct noble young ladies to take their blood. For the beautiful ones, she would even store their blood in glass vials to drink gradually. If she had just been content with taking the blood of commoners, she probably wouldn't have been discovered. Because she kidnapped young ladies of high and noble status, people around her started to get suspicious. And because she had captured and killed so many people, up to 600, the castle ran out of room for the bodies, so she had to throw them outside the castle walls. These incidents were reported to the king, and he sent the Countess's cousin named Bathory to investigate. A squad of soldiers led by her cousin discovered abnormalities around the castle while searching. And when they broke in, they witnessed truly horrific sights. Many corpses of young girls lay scattered about, drained of blood, while many others were barely breathing, and countless women were locked in the dungeons. This Elizabeth was later brought to justice, but because she was of royal blood, she wasn't executed. Instead, she was sentenced to be locked away in her castle forever. She later died in some forgotten corner of the castle at the age of 53 from starvation. Holy shit, and she didn't get executed for that. The body-deforming corset, also known as a corset, was a fashion accessory from medieval Europe. It was designed as a fabric garment with metal frames, with straps and laces inside to secure and tighten it to the body. This was used to make the waist slimmer and the chest appear larger. Back then, a tiny waist was what everyone wanted. It was considered high class and fashionable. The smaller a woman's waist, the more men would pursue her. Actually, it's still like that today. Back then, many women would try to tighten their corsets as much as possible to create an incredibly tiny ant-like waist. And using a corset long-term would lead to many serious consequences. At first, it would cause difficulty breathing and moving. Over time, it would deform the skeleton, and then the heart, lungs, liver, all the internal organs would get shifted around inside the body, and it could even cause internal bleeding. Nowadays, corsets have been redesigned to be easier to wear and look more beautiful. The custom of foot binding for women in ancient China. There are quite a few theories about the origin of this custom. First, it is said to have originated in the Shang dynasty, when the empress at the time had deformed feet and forced the court ladies to bind their own. Another record states that this custom originated in the Han dynasty. There was a consort named Zhao Feiyan, whom Emperor Cheng of Han was so infatuated with that he even killed his own children to please her. She was exclusively favored by the emperor because she was very beautiful, a great dancer, and so on. She would often wrap a silk ribbon around her small, delicate feet, which the emperor adored. So he gave them the name 3-inch golden lotuses, or 3-inch lotus heels, and demanded that the court ladies follow suit. At first, foot binding was only for royalty and the nobility, but later it went viral, becoming the beauty standard for Chinese women at the time. If you didn't bind your feet, you couldn't get a husband. The belief was that women with bound feet looked more beautiful and graceful, possessing the beauty of the upper class. On a deeper level, it stemmed from the patriarchal concept of favoring men over women. According to this belief, when a woman's feet were bound, she would be more dependent on her husband, unable to travel far, and have fewer opportunities for affairs, thus preserving her virtue. They could only stay at home doing housework and jobs like weaving fabric to increase the family's income. As for the method, when girls were 4 or 5 years old, their mothers would begin the foot binding process because at that young age, their bones were softer and easier to shape. The feet would then be soaked in warm water with various herbs and afterwards wrapped in thick cloth. The 4 smaller toes, excluding the big toe, would be broken and bent under the sole of the foot, then pulled tight and bound so that the toes were completely tucked under the sole. This was extremely painful, and the pain was persistent throughout the entire foot binding process, and it would be repeated every 2 days, lasting for 2 to 3 years. And the result was that the feet would become deformed, making it difficult to walk, and many people even suffered from necrosis, losing their toes, because their toenails would grow long, pierce the skin, and cause pus and infection. After the People's Republic of China was established in 1949, this custom was strictly banned, and it basically ended by the late 1960s. Today, only a very few elderly women around 90 years old still have these so-called lotus feet, deforming parts of the body. An unusual appearance is sometimes the main feature and is considered beautiful in the view of many cultures. In the Mursi tribe in Ethiopia, there's a very bizarre beauty practice where girls around 12 or 13 years old will have their relatives help them pierce their lips. There's a pretty famous travel channel that has mentioned this a lot. I'm sure you guys already know about it. Basically, the lower lip is stretched so that a plate can be inserted. They will make an incision in the lower lip and insert a wooden peg. After the wound is healed, they will continue to stretch it by inserting clay plates of gradually increasing sizes. And a woman can choose to stop stretching it if she feels she is beautiful enough. Additionally, they do the same thing with their earlobes, and each plate is decorated with various patterns and such. Unmarried girls can only wear wooden plates, but married women can wear white or red plates. Looking at this, it seems like a real pain. I don't know how they manage their daily lives. I heard that many even have to knock out their front teeth to make room for the plate. It may sound painful or inconvenient, but many women desire to wear these plates because they consider it a symbol of a woman's beauty. Furthermore, the bigger the hole, the better one's endurance for hardship and pain is considered to be. And this is a quality they highly value in women. Yeah, the woman with the bigger hole is considered stronger. The larger the plate a person can wear, the more beautiful she is. And the bride's family will receive a larger dowry from the groom's family upon marriage. Another type of body modification, but this time on the neck for the Kayon people, an ethnic minority in Myanmar. They have a beauty tradition of wearing rings to lengthen their necks, which is why this place is also known as the Long Neck Village. I'm sure many of you have heard of this. I remember this trend was quite popular a few years ago. The women in the village start wearing the rings at the age of 5, and a new ring is added every 4 years. The older they get, the more rings they have on their necks. It can be up to 37 rings weighing around 15 kilograms. And they wear these rings while eating, sleeping, bathing, and working. According to their beliefs, the longer a woman's neck, the more beautiful she is. Like a crane, right? Also, these women must be incredibly strong to be able to carry 15 kilograms on their necks. There are also theories that they do this to distinguish themselves from other tribes and to make themselves unattractive to avoid human trafficking. There's a story I found about this custom about the very first village chief. He dreamed that when the men were away, the women in the village were killed by tigers that bit their necks and dragged them away. So the women here had to wear metal rings around their necks to keep the tigers away. Horrifying plastic surgery. Many people get plastic surgery to become more beautiful, to be admired, to become actors, singers, and so on, or simply just to look more presentable. But then there are people who get surgery to look more grotesque. This is Dennis Ovner, a rather handsome former US Navy soldier, and after surgery, this is what he looked like. According to online articles, this man was obsessed with becoming a tiger, and he underwent a total of 14 plastic surgeries to modify various parts of his body, like tattooing gold onto his face, cutting his lips and sharpening his teeth, getting fake fangs and whisker implants, then shaping his ears to be pointed, and injecting silicone in various areas to look more fierce. And this man went by the stage name Stalking Cat. For a while he got a lot of attention from the press, was invited for interviews and things like that. When asked if he was happy with his current appearance, he said he was very happy and enjoyed being able to live true to his passion. But sometime later, he was found to have committed suicide at his home with a gun in his hand. The reason was believed to be depression. Second is this man named Anthony Loffredo who had surgery to become an alien. This is him before. And this is him now. He has undergone numerous cosmetic surgeries, like tattooing his entire body, black, removing the bridge of his nose, cutting off his ears, shortening parts of his fingers, adding implants to his face for a rougher texture, sharpening his teeth, and tattooing his eyeballs despite the risk of going blind. He believes that inside of him is an entity from outer space, and his transformation wasn't just for beauty but to liberate himself and live as his true self. And those were some of the horrifying beauty methods that I was able to find. What about you all? If you know of any other methods, be sure to comment down below. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any of our videos. Goodbye and see you next time.